Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Just want to point out for the record, Mr. Speaker, that actually this rule doesn't, that we're trying to repeal, the measure we're trying to instate, doesn't force, drug testing on anybody. And that's not going to happen in any state unless the people in the state decide that that's something they want to do. I'm quite content to let people in any state make that decision. I think in my state, I'm pretty certain that the people that I'm privileged to represent would be very upset if they thought somebody was receiving unemployment compensation while they were on drugs, because they think that is going to make it pretty hard for that person to ever get back into the workforce. And they want to be that. They don't want to incentivize it. Other people may have a different opinion, and that's legitimate. It's a big country. That's why our founding fathers adopted a federal system. So I wouldn't begrudge another state that saw it differently. But let's not try. What we're trying to avoid here is a one-size-fits-all, or this body and any administration dictating to every state what they ought to do. And frankly, I would suggest that my good friend's remarks suggest that's the concern, that they actually want to decide in Oklahoma what we would do. We're not trying to decide in Connecticut what our friends would do. We're just thinking this ought to be down to the states. And that was the intent of Congress. When this was written, it was to empower the states to allow them to pursue policies they thought were appropriate. Frankly, if they do that and they pursue different policies, which they may well, we may actually learn something out of this. Again, that's part of the genius of our system, is having 50 different laboratories out there. But let's not have a bureaucracy decide that it will circumvent the will of the Congress of the United States and write a rule that is clearly meant to undo the intent of a legislation that was passed across this floor with bipartisan support. So with that, again, we just disagree on the issue, but for the record, we're not trying to impose our beliefs. We're trying to let every state do what that state thinks they ought to do. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll reserve the balance of my time.